Hello, everybody, and welcome back here to the College Football Podcast, your weekly podcast for everything college and pro football. As we have the second edition here today of the College Football Podcast, I am joined here today again by Lincoln. How are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Appreciate you having me on with you. I'm excited for another week of football and another episode of the College Football Podcast. How you doing today?
Good as of right now, but um, I think we will get into it here. As first off, once again, we will go ahead and go over last week's college slate of games. I'll let you go ahead and go first on that one.
Yeah, so you look at the college scores from last game, had some good games. Started Friday night, had Miami somehow escape against Virginia Tech. Somehow that call was reversed. I think it was the right call that it wasn't a catch, but I think that when you look at it, I think it never should have been. It shouldn't have been reversed. There wasn't enough evidence to overturn it, but it should have been called a touchdown on the field, in my opinion. But it was crazy. That game was, and then that same night you had Washington Rutgers. Washington missed a 50-something yard field goal as time. I think it was 55 yards as time expired. Lost that one 21-18. Then you move into Saturday. Look at some scores in the early slot. Kentucky upset Ole Miss 20-17. Penn State beat Illinois 21-7. Good game there. Arizona upset top 10 Utah 23-10 in that one. Michigan survived a bit of a fourth quarter comeback from Minnesota 27-24. The Gophers in the fourth put up 24 points in that game. USC comes back in the second half with 28 unanswered to beat Wisconsin 38-21. Notre Dame beat Louisville 31-24. Iowa State shut out Houston 20-0. Kansas State and Oklahoma State, another good game. Kansas State won that one 42-20. Oklahoma was able to top Auburn in the fourth quarter. They entered the fourth down 14-10, ended up winning at 27-21. BYU beat the brakes off of Baylor in the first quarter. Really in the first half was up 31-14 at halftime. And then ended up winning that one 34-28 after a bit of a comeback in the second half from Baylor. A&M survives Arkansas 21-17. Boise State destroyed Washington State 45-24. Ashton Jeanty, another big game for him, 26 carries, 259 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Clemson beat Stanford 40-14. Texas beat Mississippi State 35-13. Arch Manning, his second game as the starting quarterback, went 26 of 31, 324 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Ohio State beat Michigan State 38-7. And then the game of the night, just an insane game all around. Alabama beats Georgia 41-34. They were up 30-7 at halftime. Georgia put up 19 in the fourth quarter, even took the lead in the fourth quarter. And then right after that, Ryan Williams, a huge touchdown to put Alabama up 41-34. Georgia then goes down the field. Carson Beck threw an interception in the end zone, and that was the game. So, yeah, great slate of games, a lot of movement around big time games. I think the one that had the most playoff contention riding on it, playoff stakes riding on it, was definitely Notre Dame Louisville, and Notre Dame able to win that one 31-24. So it was a fun game. A lot of fun games, a lot of good games. What were your thoughts on last week? What are your takeaways heading into week 6?
There was definitely a lot of fun games, as you noted there, especially Louisville, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Auburn was also pretty fun to watch there too for a bit. I actually thought Auburn was going to pull off the upset there for a second. If you look at Virginia Tech, Miami, as you're saying, that'll probably go down as the most controversial call of the year. And it probably won't even be that relatively close, even though we're only in week 5. But I'll agree with you on that one. I just didn't see enough evidence to overturn the call, and I was actually watching that game live as well. You could clearly see when he was at the vertex, he came down with it on his jump. It was just a matter of, did he retain possession to the ground? Yes, you saw the ball, but you don't know if he had full security of the ball before. I should say, full possession of the ball
Just
before
so
that
many
boom
hands
came
on the
in.
ball, it was hard to tell who had it to begin with.
Yep. Then you obviously BYU 5-0, probably the biggest shocker of the season so far, I would say. Ranked 17th in the country, but we see how dirty the committee did them when they were undefeated that other year and they were ranked like 9th. Actually, we're beating the brakes off Baylor, as you said, but then let Baylor back into the game and barely survived that game with a win. Kansas State absolutely obliterating Oklahoma State in a game that I thought would actually be decently competitive. Michigan just, the thing with Michigan, I'll say, is this is what they got to figure out. They're always good for one half and they're bad the other half. They got to figure that out. You have to be good through the whole game. You can't just be good one half and bad the other half. Indiana officially in the top 25 according to the AP poll at number 23, beating Maryland 28-42. That's another surprise team this year, and probably the shocker of the week. Kentucky knocking off Ole Miss 20-17. If you're there, I don't know if you are or not because you're muted. Do you think Kentucky is the real deal?
They're a good team. That one's hard to gauge because they lost to Georgia 13-12. They beat Ole Miss. I still think it's hard to judge. It's hard to judge Kentucky because you look at Ole Miss. They hadn't played anybody before Kentucky, so it was kind of hard to know what Ole Miss was. It's kind of hard to know what they are. And then you look at Georgia. They got the brakes beat off of them against Alabama in the first half, and then they were able to come back, and you wonder how much of that was Georgia coming back or Alabama just kind of relaxed. Georgia's obviously a talented team, but you don't really know what to make of them either early on so far this season. So, I think Kentucky's a good team. How good, though, and how good are these was that win over Ole Miss and the close loss to Georgia? We'll have to see what happens with those teams for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, obviously, after Georgia getting their, blown out in the first half. But I will say, if you really look at it, Kentucky really dominated that game against Georgia, even though the scoreboard clearly did not show it. They pretty much dominated Georgia in that game.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And then you got UNLV blowing out Fresno State 14-59 without Sluka. You got Texas A&M barely surviving Arkansas 17-21. Probably the second or third best game of the week here with Notre Dame beating Louisville 24-31. Wisconsin hanging around with USC until the very end. USC winning 38-21. Oklahoma winning basically because of a pick six 27-21. Archie Manning lights out, much better than his first start. I will admit that. 13-35. But I will add something onto that quick. I know I'll get some heat for this, but it's starting to get to the point where we know Archie Manning has the talent. I'm sure pretty much every college fan knows that, especially with his last name. But it's starting to get to the point where we don't know how truly talented he is until he actually goes against decent competition. Because Mississippi State's like one of the worst teams in the SEC, if not the worst. Obviously, your team Clemson taking care of Stanford at home. Iowa State beating Houston 20-0. My team Ohio State winning 38-7. Actually covering the spread for once.
Yeah.
Illinois really thoroughly getting dominated by Penn State once again, even though the scoreboard didn't really show it, 7-21. And that's another thing that'll bring up here as well. With Illinois, obviously, going to Penn State and being Penn State is a whole different story as well. That's tough for any team. But if you really look at now, that is truly the first true team Illinois has faced, and they basically did nothing. So I'd be a little bit worried if you were an Illinois fan at the moment. But granted, that is at Penn State. Georgia, Alabama, as you said, game of the week, not even close. Potentially game of the year, but we still got Ohio State, Oregon up along with many other good games as well. Texas, Georgia, that ought to be a good one too.
Yeah, Alabama, Tennessee, yeah, still a lot of good ones.
LSU, South Alabama, and really no need to talk about that game. Boise State, just dispatching Washington State. Utah falling to Arizona. I would have to say, what I just don't know. Once Cam Rising's gone, Utah's going to be nobody again. I'll say that much. Oregon dispatching UCLA, even though Dylan Gabriel threw a pick 6. Now, if we look at next week, you got starting on Friday, you got Syracuse UNLV. We were talking about that game a little bit beforehand here. That has potential to be a good game. McCord has been on fire of late, especially in his last game, throwing for close to 400 yards, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly.
I think that's right, and I think he's been over 300 the last 3 or 4 games.
Obviously, I think Syracuse walks out with the win here. I think it would be more competitive. I think UNLV would actually have a true chance for an upset if Sluka was playing. But other than that, Michigan State, Oregon, really no conversation needed for that game. Missouri, Texas A&M, that ought to be a heck of a game. That's going to be at College Station. Once again, College Station. Even though if you're going up a team like that, don't count out Texas A&M when they're playing at College Station. UCLA, Penn State, who the heck knows? SMU, Louisville, that has potential to be a sneaky good game, even though SMU is not ranked. Indiana, Northwestern, Indiana should win that game. Auburn, Georgia, probably take all their anger out on Auburn. Ole Miss, South Carolina. If South Carolina's starting quarterback is back, that could be intriguing based off how Ole Miss played against Kentucky. Iowa, Ohio State should be pretty easy for Ohio State, but Iowa does have a bit better of an offense this year, but that ain't going to do anything. Alabama, Vandy, we already know how that's going to end. Clemson, Florida State. This game was probably one of the more high-profile games on the schedule for this week coming into the season. Now, not so much. Utah State boys.
Not a whole lot this much, especially with DJ out. That loses the only thing that game had coming into this week. With how Florida State's played, was the storyline with it. But now that DJ is going to be out for Florida State, you don't even have the storyline anymore either. Yeah. Utah State, Boise State, no need for conversation really. Baylor, Iowa State could be a sneaky good game. USC, Minnesota. Tennessee at Arkansas. Michigan going to Washington. That could be a darn good game. Miami versus Cal. No really need to worry about that. So I'll go ahead and toss it over to you for your kind of thoughts for this upcoming week. Yeah, I think this is probably the weakest slate of games we've had this week. Not a whole lot going on, but it's college football. There's going to be upsets. Games that don't look so good on paper are going to end up being great games. And there's still great games on here. There's just not a whole lot of like big games. There's not a single ranked matchup this week, I don't believe. There is. Missouri versus Texas A&M. Missouri A&M, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that one. But other than that, I don't think there's any ranked games this weekend. But you have games like Syracuse UNLV. That scares me for Syracuse going to UNLV on a Friday night. UNLV, they lost their starting quarterback and running back to the transfer portal because of NIL stuff. But when you look last week, they beat the crap out of Fresno State. So they might not need them. But there's a lot of good games that will end up being good. I mean, Rutgers, Nebraska could be a good one. Tennessee, Arkansas could turn into something. UCF, Florida. There's some good solid games on here, but just no ranked matchups. I think it'll still be a fun weekend of college football, and I'm excited for it. But if you're ready to go ahead and jump into our top 10. Yep. I'll let you go ahead and go first there. All right, I'll start it off. So number 1, I have Alabama. Number 2, I got Texas. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, I have Oregon. Number 5, I have Tennessee. Number 6, I have Georgia. At 7, I got Miami. At 8, I have Missouri. At 9, I have Penn State. And coming in at 10, I have the BYU Cougars.
Wow.
I just felt like throwing them up there.
Well, you got, obviously, we both agree on the consensus top 3. That's not really a discussion at this point anymore. Got Tennessee at 4. I got Georgia at 5. I got Penn State at 6. Oregon at 7. Mizzou at 8. Miami at 9. And I got USC at 10.
Okay. Yeah, see, it's that 10 spot was hard for me because, like, all right, Michigan beat USC, so they'd have to be in front of them. USC beat LSU, so they got to be in front of them. Well, Michigan isn't a top 10 team, so I can't put USC ahead of them. And because of that, I can't put LSU ahead of them. Ole Miss has not played anybody. The one decent team they played to, they lost to. I can't have them anywhere near the top 10. Notre Dame, potentially, but they lost to NIU. Don't like them at the top 10. Clemson's not top 10. That left me with Iowa State or BYU. BYU has the better win.
Yep.
That's
So,
come on.
I think we'll go ahead and go on to a quick scan of the injury report here for college.
Sounds good.
I'll let you go ahead and go first again because I have to bring mine up.
Yeah, so, I mean, for starters, one of the bigger ones, at least for me, as a Clemson fan, is DJ out, which kind of sucks because, you know, you want him to play as a Clemson fan. Another one to look at is, you know, Cam Rising's out. He's hurt. That could be big. That could be big for Utah. You know, not a whole lot of huge injuries, thankfully. And this one, and this, you know, that at least happened this past weekend. Not a whole lot of big injuries, which is good for the game. It's good for the sport. You don't want a whole lot of people out. You look at the one that could be somewhat big is you look at how Virginia Tech ran the football on. You look at how Virginia Tech ran the football on Miami. Jaden Odd is listed as questionable, undisclosed injury for Cal. That could be something of notice for Clemson at least. Kobe McLeod out with a knee injury. Peter Woods is questionable. Tyler Brown's questionable. So they've got some guys to look at as well. Shiloh Sanders is out for Colorado with an arm injury. Torrey Horton, Colorado State, probable with a groin injury. You know, not a whole lot of injuries to really go through. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but I don't think there's too many of them. Mykel Williams for Georgia, he's also out. Forgot about him with an ankle injury. Georgia has a few guys out, nothing too serious there. So yeah, let me know what I forgot.
The one key one that you mainly forgot stand out to me, actually there's two of them. One that we kind of found out a little while ago, but I'll go over that one in a second because it's probably the biggest loss out of all these. They're out for the season. Miller Moss, do we have any update on him?
Oh, I did forget about him. Let me look. I'll look that up right now.
And while we're going over that, while he's checking that out, I'll go over a few other guys. Castellanos, I'm not sure about him either for Boston College.
I think I saw something that he'll be back, but I'm not sure.
You've got, obviously, unfortunately, Tyler Van Dyke out for the season with a torn ACL as well. But here is the biggest one to me. Let me bring him up here quick. I forget his name. Let's see here.
Another one I did forget to mention is Donald Chaney, the running back for Louisville. He's questionable this week with an ankle injury.
This is the one I was talking about. Harold Perkins Jr. tore his ACL.
Oh, yeah, a few weeks ago.
That's by far the biggest loss in my opinion. Probably, arguably the best linebacker in the country, in my opinion. It's not super close either.
Yeah, I would agree with you for the most part on that one. Colston Loveland, I think he's questionable for Michigan this week too, which could be big because he's about the only guy they have in the passing game. Could be big for them.
Well, they don't have a passing game when you're only throwing for 40 yards a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it matters.
And Grayson McCall, I don't know if he's back or not yet from NC State. I don't think so.
I think
he'll be available this week.
I think that's all we have injury wise. If that's all you have,
I think so.
So we'll go ahead and move on to shortly kind of talking about last week's NFL slate for the first time here on the podcast. I'll go ahead and go first with this one here. You got the Cowboys beating Giants 20-15 in a pretty ugly game. Michael Parsons turning that one along with Malik Neighbors. The Bengals finally getting their first win of the year against the Panthers, 34-24. The Falcons getting out with a 57-yard game-winning field goal. The Texans, how about C.J. Stroud with his second game-winning drive in 2 seasons? Broncos, Jets, worst game of the week. It's not even a question. Somehow the Broncos won. Vikings, Packers, unfortunately, I have to say this. Vikings win 31-29. Colts beat the Steelers 24-27. Bears win 18-24. Caleb Williams still struggling like none other. Here was my biggest shocker of the week for me personally. The Eagles getting blown out of the water 16-33 by Baker Mayfield. The Patriots falling to the 49ers 13-30. Commanders and Jay Daniels still on the roll, probably the leader for the Rookie of the Year offensive Rookie of the Year conversation, in my opinion, as right now, as Commanders roll the Cardinals 42-14. Chiefs beat the Chargers 17-10. I'm always going to hate this score. Browns lose to the Raiders 16-20. This is why I don't watch football anymore. Ravens beat the Bills on Sunday Night Football in an absolutely stunning blowout. Titans just dismantling the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill visibly upset in the sideline there in that game. And Jared Goff with the very rare perfect passing game. And according to Dan Campbell, he didn't even give him the game ball.
Wow, I did not hear that about not giving him the game ball.
He didn't know he had a perfect passer rating, so he didn't give him the game ball.
Man, he went 18-18, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, perfect passer rating. Even caught a touchdown pass in the game.
He even has more touchdowns than Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and
Brandon Ayuk. Remember how much money you wasted on 49ers fans.
Yeah. So I'll let you go ahead and go here with your thoughts on this past week.
Yeah, for the most part, not a whole lot of surprises from the NFL this week. The Ravens beating the Bills wasn't really a surprise. The way in which they handled it was. The Titans blowing out the Dolphins, a little bit surprising. Not a whole lot. The Commanders blowing out the Cardinals 42-14 with Jaden Daniels as rookie quarterback. That was pretty impressive and shocking a little bit. But yeah, not a whole lot that was really surprising. The Vikings though are one of, as a Packers fan, that game was hard to watch. The Vikings, one of the surprise teams this year. I think if you're doing power rankings for the NFL, they can't be any lower than 2. Just the way that they're playing, they're looking great. Went up 28-7 in the first half. Packers almost came back on them, but the Vikings able to hold the Packers off on that one. Good slate of games this week as well. Exciting stuff from the NFL. You want to go ahead and preview us for next week of the NFL before we head out of here?
Yeah, you got Buccaneers and Falcons. Should be a decently good game. With how the Falcons played last week, it should be a good game. Obviously, Baker played good as well. And then you've got Jets, Vikings in London, I believe that is. That could be a good game.
Yep,
depending on
London.
if Darnold shows up or not. Panthers, Bears. There should be, heck, I don't know. Browns, Commanders, I had this chalked up as a win. No, I have it chalked up as a loss. Dolphins, Patriots. Patriots will probably win this game now that Tua's out. Colts, Jags. I got the Colts. Bills, Texans. I got the Texans. Savon Diggs will light up that Bills defense. Ravens, Bengals. I got the Ravens. I got the Raiders over the Broncos. I have the Cardinals over the 49ers and the shocker of the week. I have the Seahawks over the Giants. Don't worry, Seahawks fans. DK Metcalf is just fine. Packers, Rams. I have the Packers. I have the Cowboys over the Steelers, and I have the Chiefs over the Saints on Monday Night Football.
Yep, a lot of good games this week. This may be the best slate of primetime games we've had all year. You start out Bucks, Falcons Thursday night. You get Saints, Chiefs Monday night, and Cowboys, Steelers Sunday night. That may be the best slate of primetime games we've had so far for the NFL here in Week 5. But yeah, should be another fun week of football. I'm excited for it. Any closing thoughts before we head out of here?
No, just a couple injury updates here for the NFL quick that I just saw. Along with Mike Hall Jr., of course, being suspended for 5 games there if you're a Browns fan, unfortunately. You've got DK Metcalf. He's fine. I'm not exactly sure about Tua yet. I believe he got put on the IR. Correct me if I'm wrong with that. Anthony Richardson, I'm not sure about him yet either. Obviously, Joe Flacco doesn't look good for the Browns either. And that is really all I have injury-wise. I'm just not fully sure on Anthony Richardson. I'm pretty sure they put Tua on IR. I just can't remember if Richardson is questionable or what's going on for him this week.
Yeah, Tua's on the IR. I think Richardson is questionable. We'll see what happens with that. Either way, I think the Colts will be fine. I think they're going to get about the same level of play out of either him or Flacco. They should be good. But, yeah, it should be a fun week of football starting on Thursday night all the way through Monday night. Should be fun. So you want to go ahead and get into the hot takes real quick?
Yes, the first one I had in the comments was that, well, this was a couple weeks ago, obviously. It's not really such a hot take now, but I'll go ahead and include it anyhow. This person said BYU wins the Big 12.
It's possible. I mean, they lead it right now. They're being predicted to win it. They've blown through Kansas State. Utah's vulnerable. Oklahoma State's vulnerable. It's possible. I could see it.
Our second one here was either Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith wins the Heisman this year.
I can see that one as well. I mean, they're the two best freshman receivers in college football. They're putting up the best numbers. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be hard for Ryan Williams to win it just because of the numbers he would have to put up, meaning Jalen Milroe also put those numbers up. I think that would make it a little bit difficult for him. Jeremiah Smith, I could definitely see it. Both of them will need to be on pace for a little bit better numbers, but it's definitely possible.
And the third one we have here for you is Archie Manning should start over Quinn Ewers.
This person needs to delete YouTube and quit watching football.
Just straight up, that's all he says.
Yeah, this person needs to just quit watching football.
Our next one here is that Dalvin Cook should be starting over Zeke.
I do agree with that one. Zeke's terrible.
And then last one here is Travis Kelce should be benched.
I would say bench him, but is Noah Gray really that much better? I don't think it matters a whole lot who you throw out there. I think you're going to get similar. I think you're going to get similar play from either one of them. I think, and so with that being said, I think the fans love Kelce. They want to see him. I'd play Kelce. I mean, he had a good game last week. Had a great game last week against the Chargers. So I think that leaving him in, I think that leaving him in will be good. Just also too, just the chemistry and IQ he has with Mahomes that Noah Gray doesn't have yet.
Yeah. I will agree with you on that. I do think Kelsey is the right choice to stay in the field, and I will say quick here some closing thoughts for me here. Quick. Yeah, it is true. Campbell says I feel awful over Goff game ball snub. But closing thoughts here, quick. Don't know if you saw this 2 hours ago. Von Miller has been suspended for 4 games.
I did catch that.
And I think that's all I have for closing thoughts. Yeah. Oh,
right.
And
Good.
Chiefs and Vikings are the only 2 undefeated teams left.
Yep. Not surprised by the Chiefs. Surprised by the Vikings for sure, which is crazy because the Chiefs are 3 plays away from being 0-3 and saved by the refs in 2 of them for sure.
Yep. I think that's all I have for you.
Yep, for sure. I think that pretty much wraps it up. So we appreciate everybody tuning in and hope you'll catch us next week. Hope you'll catch us next week on the College Football Podcast at Tuesday nights. We appreciate all of you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.